Na 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 na. Hey YouTube, my name is Vin and I like to play games, and welcome back to another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. This is my Week 10 recap show where I go over how my team did, my general thoughts on any of the games I watched, and who I'm targeting on the waiver wire for this week. So let's go ahead and jump into it. As you can see, we pulled out the victory here against Dak in the Box. We did put up a bunch of points. We outperformed our projections at 132 points. And Dak in the Box actually very significantly underperformed her projections. Her players really didn't do too well this week. But let's go ahead and get into the matchups. On our side, we have Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. They did put up a pretty good amount of points. Aaron Rodgers put up 29 points and Devonta Adams put up 14. They kind of underperformed though. It didn't really matter for this matchup, but we were expecting a little bit more from Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams for that matter. Aaron Rodgers only scored, I believe, 2 touchdowns during this game. Yeah, 2 passing touchdowns. He did throw an interception. Yeah, that was an unfortunate pass there. But just in general, the Packers really seemed to play down to their competition during this game. The commentators were very adamant about how well the Packers offense started out each game, and how every single game this year they scored on the first drive of the game. And during this game, no, they did not score. They ended up having a 3-and-out, as I believe. So they ended up punting. But yeah, they kind of underperformed this week. You know, part of it might have also had to do with the wind, because there was significant amount of winds during this game. It didn't seem to affect Aaron Rodgers too much, but you know, maybe that's just how good he is. He did have some errant passes. That interception did seem kind of errant as well. He did throw a couple of bombs to Marquez Valdes-Scantling again. So yeah, and a bomb touchdown as well in the wind. So yeah, I guess Aaron Rodgers is just that good, but he underperformed a bit this week. Let's go ahead and go to Devonta Adams. Devonta Adams, the same thing. He did grab a touchdown, and he did put up a lot of yards, or a significant amount of yards. 14 points though, you know, this is around his floor, and he did get a ton of targets, so you know, it is a down week for him. It's only 66 yards and a touchdown, but you know, you can never sit Devonta Adams. He is the best wide receiver going into this year and in the NFL right now, as far as my estimation. Let's go ahead and look over to our opponent's side. Drew Brees actually ended up getting hurt during this game, and it didn't look too significant during the game because it looked like he just got tackled. But after reading the news today, it seems that he actually suffered some cracked ribs, and not only that, but they said that he suffered a collapsed lung because the ribs actually punctured a part of his lung. So he's probably going to be out for a significant amount of time. I wouldn't actually be surprised if they put him on IR, the 3-week IR, but I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, he really got hurt during this game. Looking over to their Dak in the Box's wide receivers, she did start Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson here, and it looks like Adam Thielen did score 18 points. He did catch 2 touchdowns though. Telling though is just how many targets and catches he got, because he got significantly less, 4 receptions on 7 targets and 43 receiving yards, and what boosted his day was the 2 receiving touchdowns there. But if we go over and look at Justin Jefferson got all of his points on yardage. So yeah, he ended up getting 10 targets, 8 receptions, and 135 passing yards. Yeah, like I said during the last video, Adam Thielen was covered pretty hard for most of the game, and that left open Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson he's good enough to take advantage of second string, or the tertiary defense when the main coverage is going on to Adam Thielen. That being said, though, he still continues to perform. So 17.5 points, and then Adam Thielen's 18.3. These were definitely the highlights of Dak in the Box's team for this week. Going back over to our side, Robert Woods. Robert Woods did underperform. Mr. Reliable was not so reliable during this game. It's good that it didn't bite us in the butt. That didn't really matter for this week for us. But yeah, it was kind of surprising, especially since this was supposed to be a really smash spot for him against Seattle. Coming into the game, Seattle was the worst at defending the quarterback and the wide receiver positions, so we really expected him to excel here. The third wide receiver, Josh Reynolds, actually got a bunch of targets and took away from Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods during this game. And also, they really focused on the run. They, as in the Rams, really focused on the run during this game. So Jared Goff really didn't. He did pile up the yards, but he didn't really pass for any touchdowns. All the touchdowns scored during this game were by runs. By Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown had 2 touchdowns, and I even believe Cam Akers had a touchdown during this game as well. Chalk it up to I don't know, a fluky type game. We'll see what happens down the road. Just looking at the schedule, Tampa Bay probably we're going to have to temper our expectations there. San Francisco, we might temper our expectations a little bit there as well. But then going to the end of the season with Arizona, New England, New Jersey, and then Seattle again. Robert Woods has a very favorable schedule here, so we will be starting him. Maybe not next week. We'll have to think about our options then, but definitely we will be starting him in the weeks to come. Going down the list, we have it's not Adrian Peterson, but Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs looked legit during this game, and hopefully what I said last time was right, and he was a little bit banged up during the last game, and during this game he looked 100% healthy. He had a ton of carries. Let's go ahead and take a peek at how many carries he had, but he had a whole bunch of carries here. See, 21 rush attempts. He had 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Josh Jacobs looked great during this game. Going over to the other side, yeah, Josh Kelly. We really didn't expect Joshua Kelly to have a good game, and he really didn't. He really is not in good favor on the Chargers right now. Yeah, Joshua Kelly, I really think is droppable here. So hopefully for Dak in the Box, you won't have to be starting him anymore going forward now that most of her guys should be off of bye. Going down the list here too, I'm not exactly sure what happened to Philip Lindsay here, but just looking at the news on Yahoo here, it shows that he had a season low of 4 touches. I'm not exactly sure what happened with Philip Lindsay here. Maybe he was still hurt. I know he was coming back from an injury. Was it the last game? I'm not exactly sure. I know he's been beat up for a lot of this year, so it wouldn't surprise me if he got a little bit banged up during this game as well. Although nothing's really showing up on any of the news that I've seen anyways. Going down the list though, Darren Waller. Darren Waller kind of did underperform. He dropped a sure touchdown during the first or second quarter. He had his man beat. There was no safety or no other defenders in front of him, and he took his eye off the ball and he ended up dropping the pass. The pass wasn't perfect, but it was definitely catchable. If he would have concentrated a little bit more on just bringing the ball in and getting a good grasp on the ball, I for sure think that he would have caught it. But I think he got a little overexcited since there was nobody in front of him. And yeah, if he would have caught that, that would have been like a 50-60 yard touchdown right there. And that would have entirely changed his fantasy day. Otherwise though, he did get all the targets as per usual. He is the focal point of the passing game for this team. The only thing is though, this team just wants to run, which we're fine with because we have Josh Jacobs. I have Josh Jacobs on this team. But as far as passing is concerned, that just means very limited chances for him to score points. He will be the first look going forward. See, he only got 5 targets. But he is always the first look going forward. It's just there's just those limited times to catch passes and to score as well. But in this tight end landscape, man, a lot of tight ends underperformed this week, particularly since Travis Kelce was on bye. TJ Hawkinson didn't do much, and yeah, basically any tight end that scored a touchdown this week was a top 10 tight end. And sad for us, although we didn't need it, but sad for us that Darren Waller wasn't one of those guys who scored a touchdown. Looking over the way, Dallas Goedert, I still think they're still working him in, and I'm not exactly sure. See, he did get 4 of 6 targets, and 6 targets is not bad. 4 catches isn't bad either. But then again, that team is getting a lot of their weapons back. And, this seemed, from what I read anyways, this game really seems like a fluky game for the Eagles. We'll see what goes on going forward. But because they're getting a lot of their pass catchers back. Zach Ertz is also eligible to come off of IR, so he will be coming back soon. And we're not sure how those passes are going to be divvied up, because they still have Fulgham, they still have Alshon Jeffrey, they still have Dallas Goedert, and then if they get Zach Ertz back, all the pass catchers there, the only person that might be worth having is Carson Wentz, although he really underperformed in this game, and he's from all accounts, it seems his play has been very erratic this year. So we'll just have to wait and see what goes on moving forward. And then on our flex, we started Allen Robinson. During this game, man, it just reiterates how unfortunate that he has to play in such awful offenses and with such awful quarterbacks. Nick Foles couldn't get anything going, and he looked awful. And not only that, but Nick Foles ended up getting hurt at the end of the game, and he had to be carted off. From what I'm reading on RotoWorld and then the news reports right now, it isn't super serious, although, he might be missing this week's game. But he still did get a bunch of targets. Let's go and take a peek to remind myself. Yeah, he still got 9 targets, 6 receptions. These were hard-fought targets as well. And there was a couple of passes during this game where, man, he just got destroyed. It seems like he's going after these passes, but Nick Foles was leading him into the defenders. They did not look good. Not only did they not look like good passes, but they looked somewhat dangerous. We will be starting Allen Robinson moving forward. He is just that good, but like I said last time, in his situation right now, and considering fantasy, he is a top 15 wide receiver when he probably should be a top 10 wide receiver. If he was in a better offensive situation, he would easily be within the top 10. But yeah, it's unfortunate to say that, his offense is definitely holding him back. Going over to the other side, Adrian Peterson. Yeah, Adrian Peterson is also very droppable now. Unfortunate that she had to start Adrian Peterson, especially after this week, because this week, it really seems like Detroit passed the keys, handed the car over to DAndre Swift. He hardly did anything during this game, and moving forward, it really looks like that it will be DAndre Swift's backfield. Looking at the kickers, we already talked about Blankenship last game because Blankenship played on Thursday. Blankenship did pretty well. Going over to the other side, Will Lutz is a top 4 kicker every year. So yeah, Will Lutz did what he did. Arizona, that wasn't a particularly good matchup. She probably should have picked up somebody else to play there. New Orleans did fairly well against San Francisco, which was to be expected. That's basically why we picked up New Orleans, because more so because San Francisco's offense has just looked pretty terrible, with most of their weapons missing, and with Nick Mullins at center. Just notable people on my bench here. This ended up being one of those weeks where I just really couldn't miss. All of my players seemed to hit pretty well. I should have really started Diontae Johnson if we're just looking at the numbers. He got a ton of targets here versus Cincinnati, which was to be expected a bit. But yeah, he got a touchdown, and a bunch of catches and receptions. Let's take a peek here. So it's 11 targets and 6 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. So moving forward next week, he has Jacksonville, so that is a very plus matchup. We will highly consider starting him next week, depending on the matchups of my other players as my starters right now. Another guy who really overperformed or really performed well was Antonio Gibson. Looking at the scores as they were updating on the fantasy app, Washington, they let Cincinnati get out to a big lead again, which really should have killed Antonio Gibson's value. The game script was not in his favor, at least according to the score, but he ended up getting 2 goal line carries for touchdowns, so this really saved his day. Man, this Washington team, though, it's just so unreliable. He has, let's go and look at his matchups here, because he has these smash matchups where we just think that the game script is going to be in their favor, but during against New York, against Detroit now, or I'm sorry, they played Detroit, not Cincinnati, but against Detroit now, it's like they get behind, and during the first half they get behind by so much too, by multiple touchdowns, and just the game script just goes so negative when they really should be, like, you'd really think that they'd be more competitive during these games. But for the next 2 weeks, he has another two which should be very good matchups for him, Cincinnati and Dallas. We'll see how it goes. I really don't anticipate needing to start him, though. Oh, I didn't even talk about Nick Chubb. How did I miss Nick Chubb? Nick Chubb, he came back. He looked good. He scored a touchdown. He had a breakaway run for 50 yards. Yeah, Nick Chubb is 100% going to be in our lineup moving forward 100% of the time. Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs will probably be permanent fixtures as our starters moving forward. But Nick Chubb could have even gotten more points during this game. He during the end of the game, instead of running it in for a touchdown, he just stepped out of bounds. We didn't really need the extra points not to pull out this win, but yeah, Nick Chubb is definitely back, and he's definitely still Nick Chubb. But last but not least, let's go over the last guy on my bench right now. DeAndre Swift had a monster game. Did he score more than 1 touchdown? I know he put up a whole bunch of yards. So he had 81 rush yards, 16 carries, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. It is definitely DeAndre Swift's backfield moving forward. Between DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, and Diontae Johnson, those guys will more or less be the guys that are filling in our flex spot. My team might not be the best starting lineup right now, but we definitely have depth here. My team is very, very deep. But I think that pretty much goes over our matchups here. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the standings. After that win, I pretty much stayed the same in the 3rd spot. The drafted ended up losing this week. They're losing week 10, so they ended up dropping a spot to number 2. And Vaughn, like Donkey Kong, ended up winning, so he catapulted back up to the 1st spot. Going down the other players here, it's going down. He won this week as well, so he stayed in the same spot. Blue Balls ended up pulling out the upset victory against the drafted, and he ended up pulling up a spot in the rankings from 6th to 5th. And Booyah, I believe, ended up losing, so he ended up going down a spot as well. Looking forward to the waiver wire, considering how deep my bench is, I'm only looking to pick up a defense. Right now, I really want to pick up the Los Angeles, not the Chargers, but the Rams defense here, more so because they have a pretty bad matchup this week. Actually, they're playing Tampa Bay, which is not a great matchup. But right now, considering my rankings, I really don't think, my knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm pretty firmly in the playoff picture right now. It'd be a big surprise for me not to make the playoffs. So I'm thinking I'll pick up the Los Angeles Rams here for their playoff schedule. Because looking forward, they have Tampa Bay this week, and then next week they have San Francisco, which should be a pretty good matchup for them if Nick Mullins and all their guys are still injured. And then they have Arizona, which is, not a great matchup. But to start the fantasy playoffs in week 14, they have New England, which hasn't looked good, hasn't looked great this year. And then they have New Jersey, which has been the league's doormat for the entire year. And then they end up with Seattle, which is not a good matchup. So we're probably going to think about over either this week or next week. We'll probably be rostering two defenses, somebody to play during week 16, and somebody to play during those 2 weeks that we saw there that did not have good matchups. So Tampa Bay this coming week, week 11, and also week 13. I'll look into it a little bit more later. Like Washington, I believe, can fill up some of those holes. They do have a good matchup this week. This week is against New Jersey, so that is an amazing matchup. And during week 13, they are against New England, which isn't a bad matchup as well. Oh wait a minute, they're against Cincinnati this week. What am I smoking here? But yeah, Washington is against Cincinnati this week, and then actually the Chargers are against New Jersey this week. Let's try and take a peek at them. So they're against New Jersey. Oh, this is the Chargers. The Chargers are against New Jersey, and they're against New England, which, that's not bad. And then they have Denver during week 16. Maybe I'll try to pick up both the Los Angeles defenses here to plug in those holes. But right now, considering that we're firmly in the playoff hunt right now, we have a high probability of making, didn't want to do that. High probability of making the playoffs. We're going to start looking towards the future and seeing what we could do to give ourselves the best chances of making, of doing well during the playoffs, which means defenses, and we're going to look to start picking up our handcuffs as well. So Chris Carson's handcuff we probably want to look to pick up, and Devonta Booker for Josh Jacobs would also be somebody that would look to pick up. Although, maybe we don't need those handcuffs all that much, because we do have two quality players in Antonio Gibson and DAndre Swift. With that being said, I think I'll end the show here. Thanks again for watching another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. My name is Vin. I like to play games, and I'll see you next time.